Greetings, thank you, and welcome. Glad everybody could join us. This is a momentous occasion for a few different reasons. This is, first of all, episode number 1 of Passing Through, a new podcast for the Chilliwack Independent Film Festival. And as if that wasn't enough all on its own, we have the incredible pleasure to welcome Gigi Saul Guerrero to join us for this first podcast. Gigi, thank you so much.
No, of course. I feel so honored. I am numero uno on the show. Like, that's probably the coolest thing ever. So thank you for having me. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. So basically, for those of you tuning into the first one, this is really going to be hopefully pretty casual, getting to know. We're doing a few of them over the course of the festival, and I'm not sure when they will be releasing, but they will be coming out over the course of a period of time, and we will be doing more whenever we get the opportunity. It doesn't have to be only at the festival. But let's deal with what we have right now. So Gigi Saul Guerrero, aka La Muñeca del Terror.
Oh, that's pretty good. Good Spanish there.
Just between you and I, though, I practice, and I still I can't roll my R's. That's always my downfall. Besides the obvious downfall I have of trying to explain to people that the only Spanish that I really know is from gang movies or Mexican death metal. So most of the stuff cool. I can't repeat.
I feel like that's enough to get around if you go for a vacation to Mexico. I feel like you got enough vocabulary to be like the cool guy. It's all good.
Yes, or the guy that is under investigation for something. So let's get to know you a little better. You're obviously an increasingly growing name in the world of horror filmmaking. And it is my pleasure to be doing this because I've been saying this is our 7th festival. And I've been saying we need more horror content. We need more horror content. And then I guess when that finally clicks in, we get you. So,
oh man, that's so cool.
so let's find out a little bit about you. Like what is your background? I know very little personally about you, but you were born in Mexico and then ended up somehow in Vancouver. So take us through that journey.
No, for sure. I mean, I'm born and raised from Mexico City. So it already tells you my background is very spiritual. I come from a very Catholic house. So definitely since growing up, since a kid, and I moved to Canada as a teenager. I was about 14. Yeah, 14 years old. Oh God. So half my life now. I'm Canadian now. Like that's like a true half and half.
What was that like? Like, was that do you remember it as being an absolute, obviously life-changing, but so life-changing. Totally different?
Totally different. I mean, people still ask me today the same question of, do I prefer Canada or Mexico? And honestly, they're so different. And we're not even 2 different countries. It's 2 different worlds completely. Not just language, but it's culture, the way people are, the way you live your life. Like it's just 2 different worlds. So it's almost unfair to compare. And I love staying close to my roots. I put it all towards film to show my love to Mexico. While at the same time, it's not even that I miss it so deeply, is that I find so lucky to be in a country like Canada that shares all cultures of the world. What a better place to share who you are than a country like this, right? That
and to have
so diverse.
Yeah, really, really open opportunity to share it as well.
Exactly. But I didn't discover film until I moved. And growing up, for me was not even a choice to move here. For me, it was super cool. That's what my parents want. No worries. So, but for my sister, it was harder because she's older. Don't tell her that I told you that. But for her, we moved and she's got to do prom in a new country. She's got to make new friends for her last year of high school. Like for her was very tough. Yeah. For me, I'm like, yeah, okay. Like no big deal. But once I moved here, something I really appreciate from my family, especially my grandma who moved with us at the time, we would always and only speak Spanish in the house. And that's something you don't hear a lot from the generation of my generation and younger. Usually it's just you learn English and stick with it. So I know that can be really rough with immigrant families.
Yeah.
But I'm so, so thankful that in my house, my mom would always say, in this house, you talk in Spanish and you're Mexican. But the moment you walk outside, you do whatever you need to do. So that kept me so grounded to my roots and kept me so close to it. However, moving here, because as we were saying, Canada's so diverse, I had a lot of trouble in high school finding where I belonged. I didn't even celebrate my quinceañera, which is like a big, big celebration in Mexico. When you turn 15, you become a woman. And it's a big deal. I didn't want to celebrate it. I was too scared to get the other kids to understand why I wear a big puffy dress and why it's a bit, like I just was so worried where to belong. And the Latin culture here is a lot smaller. Like if we moved to LA, oh man, it's like we never moved. It would have been no big
Yeah.
deal. Right.
See, and in a way, that's too bad because, I mean, I think about it and I see those things in movies. And because I don't know myself, I always wonder, is it really that way or is it just a stereotype that gets overplayed because it's in a movie? But that is a real significant part of your culture.
100%. It's massive. It's massive. And we celebrate so many things, even death with Day of the Dead. Just the way we have such a different perspective in life. And we're very spiritual in general too. So we're superstitious,
Yeah.
we're dramaticas, like we always say, we're dramatic. So it's very different. And if it wasn't for that tough time in high school, trying to find a way, trying to fit in and trying to be okay with who I am as a Mexican immigrant, I would have never discovered film. And it's thanks to film today why I put so much of my Latino and Mexican side into film, because I discovered that, thankfully, at 16, that this is the best medium to be proud of who I am and to show the world of who I am. And I would put it into filmmaking. And it's funny. I don't know if I would be a filmmaker today if I had stayed in Mexico. I'm always so curious. What would I have done?
Yeah.
What would I be today? So that change was interesting. That change was super different. And not to make the story super long, but I came from a German immersion school in Mexico City. So I knew Spanish and German, super random. But that school was all about sports, only sports. So I moved to Canada at a teenage, and I said, you know what? If they have a movie of Cool Runnings, they got to have the Latino version of that. I want to be the first like Winter Olympic athlete. So I started getting into hockey, into ringette, and like all these things. I started being such a good skater. Like I was like, I'm going to do Winter Olympics for Mexico. Like that was my goal. So I was involved in all the sports all the time. And the White Rock School, Earl Marriott, is a very sports heavy school. But more than that, it's very heavy in the arts, and it's got a beautiful theater for all the plays that they do. So it's only by accident that when I was 16, all the sports classes I wanted as an elective course were full. But the only one that wasn't full was drama class. I was like, fine, I'll get in that and it's easy to skip it. Little did I know, my friend, that I was going to love it. I was going to go crazy about it. So I was like, I don't want to do sports. I want to be the next musical theater Broadway star. Like I just was like, I loved the whole thing. But when it came to acting, from there right away, my parents were like, let's try this agent thing. I booked commercials right away.
Wow.
And so I was like, whoa, what is this whole thing with the cameras and the lights? It's so many people to do this weird little commercial. I just couldn't understand all the work that goes behind it. And it just kind of started grabbing my attention, but I was really immature at the same time. I would only watch at that age horror movies because my mom hates them. I would only watch anything Adam Sandler was in, and I could quote anything Samuel Jackson would say. Like I was only watching very specific movies that I know my parents are not into.
Yeah.
And my sister too is very different than me. So she's an opera singer and like very classy. She sings jazz. So she loves, romantic movies and all that. And I was like, meh. So how it all went down and why I'm here today making movies. Even though, yeah, I was acting on the side and not taking life that seriously at 16. If for those listening, and you're a younger sibling, you will totally understand that we are born just to make our older siblings' lives miserable. That's all we are meant to do in this life. So I knew my sister was going on a date. I knew where she was going at the time. I knew what theater. I knew what movie. And so I invited everyone from my class. Let's go crash my sister's date.
Oh my God.
I knew everything. Little did I know that the movie they were going to see was the movie that was going to change my life. And that was Children of Men by Alfonso Cuarón. That movie, it just impacted me to a whole other level. I had never seen a movie like that. And like I said,
that's the movie with Clive Owen, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I was only 16. And yes, directed by Cuarón. And I remember watching this movie and I forgot why I was there. I even had the popcorn and candy ready to throw at my sister across the seats. Didn't do it. And this movie, Children of Men, I guess because I'd never seen anything like that, it impacted me in a way that I remember hating humanity. I remember feeling this movie's too close to today. I remember just in general feeling the darkness of our world. That's how much it hit me. I'd never seen anything like that, ever. I was so immature. And the movie impacted me so much that, crazy enough, when the movie was over, the guy that my sister went on a date with, and, you know, they went out for quite some time, he was a film student. And he saw my reaction, even though my sister's like, why are you here, Rap? By the concession stands. And this guy was like, you know, I'm learning how to make movies like this in school. And I remember being like, wait, you go to a school to learn about movies? Yeah, it's called film school. I remember being like, wow, what is that? There's such a thing. And the moment he said, and did you know this director is Mexican? You hear those stories all the time, and they are for real life-changing. When he said to me that the director was Mexican, I remember being like, what? He made this English-speaking movie? And he said, yeah, and you should probably check out his other two amigos, Guillermo del Toro and Alfonso Iñárritu. Man, like, Darren, is no joke. Like, those moments really can change your life. And I remember being like, somebody like me made something like that? I want to do that. And that night, got home, I said, I'm going to film school. I remember I'm going to film school. And that's how it went. So I actually went to film school here, wanting to come out to one day make movies like Children of Men, dark, violent, human films that just like grab and grip you. But, you know, once you're in school, you meet new people, you get influenced with cool things. And that's where I met some good people, and my cinematographer and everything I do now, Luke Bramley, who's the biggest genre horror fan I've ever met. And he's like, you don't know horror. I'm like, yeah, I do. I know this movie and that movie. He's like, no. Take this. And he gave me the DVD that changed everything again. He gave me Devil's Rejects by Rob Zombie. Oh. I've never seen anything by Rob Zombie. I didn't even know who he was.
Yeah.
And I see this movie and I was like, holy shit. Also, I just said the first swear word on this podcast.
Good. I was afraid it was going to be me. So
I remember watching this. I was like, holy crap. Like, that is awesome. So that opened my slate. I didn't know about Tarantino, Rodriguez, and like Adam Wingard, and like all these genre people that are crazy. I'm talking like crazy. So I only knew classic genre, which is still great. But we live in such a time now that you can break and bend those rules. That is exactly what, you know, it sticks with people. So I just kind of found my way, and Rodriguez, a lot of people can see it in my work, really influenced me. Because I was like, okay, he's got that Spanglish Tex-Mex vibe, then it's totally okay to be two things. That's kind of where I got all my inspirations from. And now we're here. That was a long story. I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's an amazing story. Like that's the one thing I love. It's not just that a particular film moved you the way that it did, but just that film has the potential to do that for
It
everybody else
totally
as well.
does. Yeah. No, like I remember right after Children of Men, I started seeing all these movies by Mexican directors. I suddenly saw Amores Perros, and I'm like, whoa. I was like, oh my God. And like anything by Del Toro, oh my God. And
Yeah.
I was like, wow. Like I had no idea, that the people that you relate with in culture and language. Yeah. And you're right. Movies will speak to you no matter the language, no matter the culture. And I think that's also why movies are so inspiring to me, is because it's the one thing out there that there's something for everybody. And the fact that a movie can follow you home, I always use that quote, especially in horror. How cool. A movie can follow you home, whether it's minutes, days, weeks, years, like The Exorcist did, haunted people for years.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how cool it is that movies can do that to you. And
I was so scared to
yeah.
watch The Exorcist. I didn't watch it until well into my teens because I remember my aunts and uncles all went to it one night, and they were so messed up for days after that. Like you'd flick a light switch
Yeah.
and they thought the world was ending, and I was just like, I can't even imagine what a movie would be like to do that to you. So I didn't watch it
Ooh.
until maybe 17 or 18 when I finally got the guts to watch it,
Oh man, it's
and
still
I got
good
it.
though.
Oh
It's
yeah.
sti- it's definitely, I think, the still the top horror movie ever made. It's not cliche to say that. It hasn't aged bad at all. It's yeah. It's so
Yeah.
scary.
I know. I watched
Mhm.
the new one just actually a couple of weeks ago, and I found myself laughing, and then I'm like, oh, I don't think I'm supposed to be laughing at this, but
I know, right? And definitely, I mean, it's interesting where we are today in filmmaking I think for genre, especially how much it is remakes now
yeah,
and consistent of the same IP when, man, we can create new ideas for the rest of our lives. But it's always an interesting phase of where we go. I
right.
find that, if you're a filmmaker, anybody listening to this, you're playing catch up a lot in your career. And you're almost trying to always keep up with what maybe is trending, what is being looked for, what is being related to. It's always playing catch up, I find. Hmm.
Well, yeah, I mean, the industry's kind of set up that way, right? Like, I
Yes.
remember with the first Saw film, nobody thought that that would do what it did, but then all you saw were Saw-like films after that because the studio wants that magic in that bottle again.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah.
So
And
is that
even go ahead. Go ahead.
I just say, is that tough for you then as a filmmaker? Because if you have a vision for something that is outside of that box, but everyone's telling you, okay, but could you do that like Saw?
All the time. It's always a challenge because you want to also find a way that is your voice,
Yeah.
your idea. But it is a thing. We are constantly having to pitch ideas with already movies in place of reference, like all the time. We're
Right.
always having to say, it's going to be like this movie with a touch of that one and characters like that. There's always a thing that we have to always paint a picture. But you know what? If that's what we got to do, that's what we got to do. Same with how the industry changes all the time. And in this case, I think it's changed for the better. And now we're so open to diversity and authenticity, which I don't think 10 years ago I'd be this excited of how much of my culture I can put into film. I don't think I would have been able to do that back then.
Yeah.
But
Well, and I
so
guess starting out too, it's difficult, right? Because maybe in your mind, you've got this unique idea that you want to tell this awesome story of your culture and in your way. And you have other people telling you, well, you just, be the next this. And you're like, but I want to be the first this. But you don't really
exactly.
have the ability to say that, do you, at the beginning? Because you're
No, you
beholden to
don't.
money.
Oh, 100%. And a lot of it is so, I'm a big believer of right time, right place too, in anything. And I find that with film, the biggest lesson I've learned, other than patience, but the biggest lesson I've learned is to not be afraid of failure in this business. Because it's very easy to get discouraged because we're artists. And I think we take things so personal and so to heart because we put every inch of ourselves into every project, every idea, and anything we put our hands to. So being told, something that isn't yours, even if it is your idea, or being told you can't, I've been there many times. It can be very easy to turn around. So it's an industry that will always test your sanity.
Yeah.
It's a business that will always test you, but like it's so rewarding when everything goes maybe not your way, but rewarding when you touch people, when your movie speaks to people. And I remember my feature debut, Culture Shock,
Right.
which I did in 2019. It was a Hulu original with Blumhouse. And that was the first project that I got a yes, but it wasn't an easy yes to get. Like, I definitely know I was the filmmaker that I had to pitch 4 times. I don't know if the other guys did. And that's okay. That's totally okay. Why? Because it forces me to go hard. It forces me to always look at something in a sense that's not a negative, like, oh, maybe because I'm a woman or I'm nobody, I have to do. No, I got to pitch 4 times. Okay, now I'm gonna force myself to bring it every single time.
Yeah.
I get 4 chances, and thanks to that feature debut, Culture Shock, I was so trusted, thanks to Blumhouse and Hulu, to really bring those life experiences that you and I talked about when I moved from Mexico to Canada, to really show what it's like to feel culture shock, to really feel what it's like to have your like 2 worlds be just completely opposite. And it was at a perfect time in the world where, unfortunately, we were going through a really tough time in the States with the Trump era and immigrants being caged and separated within their families. Like, I learned very quickly as a filmmaker, thanks to that experience, that filmmaking should never feel like a job. This needs to feel like a responsibility, every project. And I've done that ever since. If my project can say something, then it's my responsibility to be able to say it in the movie. If that's my only contribution to making any kind of change in the world, then that's what I got to do. So I find like that really has changed the game for me to look for projects like that and not be so hungry that it's a job. It's more like, now it's my responsibility to speak and say something.
That's nice, and it's a thing that can really set your films apart too. I mean, you've got again that background, like you said, that death is such an important part of your culture, and it's spoken about, and it's something that's public, and then you can use those ideas and incorporate them. Like that's in the new VHS, you have the ones in what's it called again? God of Death.
God of Death.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like that. That's a perfect example of how you can incorporate that in there. But you also have in Bingo Hell, you've got the underlying kind of social
Totally.
issue that you're highlighting as well.
Gentrification. Yeah. No. So I think it's also coming from a tough country like Mexico, where it almost feels like we're at war every day. We too have such rich things from our history and mythology and just in general our background. I love Mexico to death. So if I can continue to at least explore our lore that maybe the world doesn't know about, because it's very easy to stereotype anything, I will continue to do so. But it's not easy, right? Like it's definitely not easy, because at the same time, as a filmmaker, there's nothing guaranteed. So this job, like most artists, it's not consistent, and we got to find ways of how to eat and how to keep going. So it's an intense game, but it's possible. It's so possible in this business, and I feel that Canada really helped me get that jump start, for sure.
And you do and still do a lot of acting and voice work as well.
Yeah.
Is that almost kind of like hedging your bet?
I think so. I feel almost greedy too. I'm like, here. But I don't know. To me, I find like if I could just be part of storytelling in any capacity, I love it so much. And it's also important to always recognize storytelling, not filmmaking, but storytelling in general is not a one-person show. It takes a whole family, a whole team, an entire ship of talented people. And so I actually learned quite a lot from being directed by other directors than as much as I learned in film school. So I personally love being directed, whether it's voiceover in my booth here or on set, because I'm like, oh, that's really good. Or I'm like, oh God, I'm never doing that. So I almost find like you got to be hands-on in this industry to really, really get a good grasp of what it's about.
Have you had an experience with another director that maybe wasn't that good, where you were thinking to yourself, I don't really think they know what they're doing, or they're making the wrong choice?
Honey, please, all the time. All the time. For sure. No, listen, we've all been there. There's always that person. Everybody gets one, like Spider-Man says. Everybody gets one. But I definitely have had more than one encounter, but it's hard. Like, this business, it's so easy to be stressed out. Oh man, like we are always under stress because it's always no time, no money for everything. No matter how much money, there's never enough. And so, definitely some directors are, super stressed out, or I find egos are definitely a thing we're going to deal with no matter what they are, director or producer or the sound guy. Egos are always the thing that's in the way. And it's tough. It's tough because it's such a competitive industry. I think competition's always been wired to us to try and excel in any way. So, I've been there. I've been there, especially as a woman and as a minority, all the time. I've been there a lot where I get treated differently, but I have found ways, through guidance of others, inspired by others, and just through experience, not just growing thick skin, but it's almost like how to navigate through all of this with class. And that's always been very important for me, because especially being a woman, it's so easy to be opinionated when all you did was speak the truth. It's so easy to be considered difficult when all you did was say, how about this? And it's also very easy to be looked at as a bitch when you say no.
That's kind of the eternal thing, right? That when a man is strong and opinionated, he's a leader and you should follow him. But then when a woman does it, then she doesn't know her place and she's being a bitch.
Exactly. And I'm a really smiley person, Darren. Like, I'm always smiling and laughing. But on set, someone, did something not great, or I have to say no, and I stop smiling. Everyone's like, wow, Gigi's not very nice. I'm like, can I just not smile for 1 second? But that happens. So it's almost, I know, and
it's such a cliche that just smile more. Oh, you're prettier if you smile, and like the idea that anybody, especially today, knowing what we know, would ever say that to somebody or expect the smile, or that's just unbelievable.
It's true. It's unbelievable. But I feel very lucky to be a filmmaker today, not just for the whole amazing thing of there's more authenticity and diversity and all that, but I find in general in the world where we are today, change is a constant thing right now. In the past 5 years, especially with pandemic, I find like we are more up on our feet on wanting to move forward, on wanting to not dwell on things that are in the past. I find like right now is such a great time to keep inspiring change. And I find that in our industry is something right now that's great, because I don't know. I don't know if, thanks to the women in front of me leaving the door open for me, that I'd be here. And that's only going to happen if we continue to stay grounded, be firm, be honest, like we couldn't before. Like before we couldn't be honest. So now it's actually kind of nice to say no. It's quite great to, you want to think I'm a jerk, go for it. But I'm just telling you what's up.
Yeah. And I mean, you're in a particularly good position to deal with things like this, because I think I undersell you when I say that you're a director and an actress, because you're also a writer.
Thank you.
You write a lot of the things that you end up directing and starring in. And so you could, for example, I don't even know what your next project's going to be, but I see a perfect opportunity for you to take a male character that tells a female character to smile because she'd be prettier and just brutally eviscerate them. It would be fantastic.
I think you have it right there. You just gave us a new idea. No, but it's perfect. Every project I've had the chance to do, and it's amazing how many now I've been able to apply any kind of social topic or any kind of universal theme that I think everybody can understand. And so it's nice to be recognized for that in all of my films. And super cool that, you knew about God of Death in VHS, which is like the coolest experience because VHS is, I think, the biggest anthology franchise in the world. I'm pretty sure it's like the most known horror loved franchise of anthologies. Like,
it probably is the most common one,
apart from Creepshow maybe, but like it's awesome. And I remember in film school, oh my god, almost 10 years ago, seeing VHS 1 and 2 and all these amazing directors, Adam Wingard, David Bruckner, like all these directors making crazy Hollywood films today, making this anthology for no money, but an anthology that breaks boundaries, an anthology of horror that's no filter, no fucks given. It's just here to shock. So I remember seeing VHS 1 and 2 and saying to my best friend, Luke, we need to be part of this cool kids club one day. Like, I remember wanting so badly to just be part of something like that. And 10 years later to be in VHS 85, with the most controversial segment, I'm like, yeah, baby. And I love it. I love it. I love it so much. I never expected my segment to be a shocker. I thought Mexicans would be proud of me, but I offended a lot of people with my segment.
Really? You offended Mexicans with that?
Yes, I did.
Oh.
It's great. It gets people talking, but it's interesting how people were not ready for something like that. And for those listening who don't know what I'm talking about, so I made a segment called God of Death that we had to base in the VHS franchise, a short that takes place in the 80s. Whatever we want. The movie's called VHS 85. It just has to be in the 80s. That's it. But I wanted to be the first filmmaker to actually do it based on a historical event. I wanted to do it based on actually something. So it's found footage and it feels real. And so I based it on the most famous destructive earthquake that Mexico City had in 1985, September 19th. My parents survived through it. I have family survived through it. I didn't live then. I'm from the 90s, but it's a very traumatic event. Like, it's a big deal. And we always have earthquakes in mid-September in Mexico City. It's one of the most unexplained things in Mexico City. We don't know why, but it always shakes at the same time. And scary. So I wanted to just do my own interpretation as to why we always shake. And I got inspired that Mexico City is sinking because it's on top of the Aztec Empire. So that kind of tells you where my story goes. So all it is just I'm inspired by the event. That's it. Little did I know that, people were not ready 40 years later to see something about it. Like, people were not ready to experience a segment that goes pretty visceral, gory, about these rescuers trying to rescue a cameraman. That's why it's all found footage. But they keep getting lower and lower and lower in the building. They can't get out till they find themselves in something very, very horrific. And it's got like 48 million views on TikTok of people going like, the most offensive thing, she based it on this real person and that. I'm like, I made everything up. And some people thought on Twitter, there was a tweet that went like almost 2 million views on it. They thought that my segment was a documentary. They thought I reenacted some event that happened that day. And it was crazy the amount of press that came out. That Shudder, the platform, because it's a Shudder original, they were like, whoa, Gigi, what did you do? I'm like, I don't know, but it's making more people download your movie illegally. So that's cool, right? Like, there's more people watching the movie now. And so I was totally okay with it. But maybe if I was a new filmmaker and this was my first big project, I'd be really sad. I'd be really scared. But now I'm like, good promo, bad promo is all promo.
I almost look at it like, I mean, you've got, what did you have, 22, 23 minutes to tell your part of the story, which is
20
why I
minutes.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
love anthologies because if you don't like it, just wait a couple minutes and then another one's on and maybe
Another
you'll like
one's
that
on.
one. But in yours, I think that the reason that it worked so well is you set up those characters in that limited time that you had at the beginning so that we
Thank you.
actually got to know them a little bit. And then it matters more and we care more when these things start happening. And so maybe people, like, you did such a good job with these characters in that small window
It was
that,
too real for
yeah,
so many people. Those offended, they just were not ready. And what to me, I'm like, well, I guess it just it feels too real. So that to me is a big goal because I'd never done found footage in my life. So, but I love it. And it's been also amazing to see Mexican genre fans defend it.
yeah.
All the fans defending it. So I love all this. I'm so happy, especially there's not a lot of us Latinas making horror out there, and it's exciting. It's exciting to see who's right next to me, and like totally promote them and like inspire each other. And I think that's what filmmaking's about. I don't like to ever look at this as a competition in any way. So I'm excited, especially coming to the festival in Chilliwack Independent Film Fest. I've heard so much about you guys, and I can't wait for this weekend to kick off.
We're so excited that you're going to be here. I mean, unfortunately, we couldn't get you here in time in studio to do this, so we are remote, but you will be here momentarily to partake in the festivities, and I'm very much looking forward to that. So you've mentioned some of the movies that got it started for you again. Children of Men and then Exorcist and other movies. Can you think of any other ones? Because I know that when I really started watching horror, this was probably when I was in my teens in the 80s. And I remember a couple of movies like Sleepaway Camp and Dead and Buried.
Nice.
We were renting movies from the video store for the first time. Those are the ones that really got me. And then Poltergeist. Do you have movies like that for you?
100%. Child's Play 2. Child's Play 2. Why? Well, like I said way back in our conversation, I come from a very Catholic house. Like everything in this house, to my grandma, my mom, well, my grandma, may she rest in peace, but I know she's listening. Everything's a devil. Everything's a devil. You put your purse on the ground, my mom's like, oh my God, the devil's going to take your money. Pick that up. So superstitious.
Oh, yeah. A lot of Dios mío.
Ooh, for everything. Like, I please, like praying all the time. So I was so kept away from all the things. And you walk in Mexico, one of our bigger jokes, I mean, it's not that funny, but kind of one of our most morbid things in Mexico is that you got like a Time magazine next to some other great magazine, and then the newspaper with the front cover with dead bodies. Like you just see all this morbid stuff all the time. But then we celebrate Dia de los Muertos. Like the way we see a lot of the darkness is very different. Like we really love to believe in things spiritually as well. And so my mom's scared of all those things. I sometimes see her talking on her own, and I'm like, who are you talking to? She's like, there's a ghost in the house and I'm telling them to go away. I'm like, oh, okay, Mom, that's cool. No worries. And so I was kept away from everything scary. Anytime we go to the movies, my eyes are always covered. Everything, just, Gigi, you're not allowed to see anything. So, of course, little did my mom know that my curiosity was going to be her biggest enemy. So my favorite thing, just like you, I loved going to Blockbuster. That was like my coolest event of the day, was whenever we go to Blockbuster, because I'd always separate from my family and I go walk the horror aisle of all these movies I'm not allowed to see. So I loved looking at all the VHS and DVD covers of all these movies and make up in my head what they're about. And Child's Play 2 was the cover that just spoke to me so much. I mean, for those listening, I think you remember Child's Play 2 is Chucky with giant scissors cutting another doll's head. What? I was like, yo, that's like some Toy Story dark shit, Like I grew up with Toy Story, so I was like, Buzz would never do that to Woody, like, oh my God. So what I did, stole that VHS at 8 years old. I got in a lot of trouble. Sorry. I took that VHS, and that was the first horror movie I'd ever seen or anything bad I ever did. And I think I only got through maybe 40 minutes of the movie because I was so scared, but I didn't understand what being scared was because I was so, kept away from being scared. So it was almost like a cool, thrilling feeling that I felt Chucky's presence in the room. I didn't know what that meant. So I was like, oh, what? Why do I think he's in the closet? I didn't understand. And I remember opening and closing the closet because I thought he was there, but I didn't know that that's being scared. So since then, I just kind of love movies follow you home, no matter what. And Child's Play 2 totally did that for me. Like, that was the movie that I was like, wow, like movies do that,
Did you ever take that movie back?
No. I don't know where it is at the moment. Or maybe, you know what? I think my mom did. I personally never took it back.
That would be amazing, actually, if you still had that and it still had the Blockbuster sticker on it.
I'm going to ask her. Actually, I didn't think about that.
Because that should be in like a glass case on display somewhere.
I couldn't agree more. That's great. Okay, I'm going to ask her. She's going to be like, too crazy. I buried it.
That's right. And then when you reach that point of superstardom, then that becomes, that goes to the Smithsonian or something like that.
I like the way you think. I really like the way you think.
So, do you think your films, and I keep saying films, but you've done TV as well. I actually think the very first thing of yours I saw was that episode of the Purge series,
thank you.
Which was amazing. And like, again, I love that when different people direct them because then every episode has its own flavor, and that one had a flavor. But
thank you so much.
I keep saying film. Do you think that you have a visual aesthetic that's you?
Definitely.
How would you describe it?
I know for sure all the things that I film look very textured, grimy, very weathered in a way. I love imperfections, especially sweat, tears, imperfections in skin. Like, I really love showing just more the rawness of what's on the frame. And I'm a big fan of handheld. Like, handheld is just, to me, is, yeah. And I think that's because I saw Devil's Rejects by Rob Zombie. I'd never seen anything like that. And I was like, I want to make stuff like that just makes you feel like you're right there. So anybody that watches my work, they know it's Gigi's work because of the texture, the handheldness, but also I tend to have a lot of color. I think maybe that's the Day of the Dead side of me, that color speaks a lot, because all the stuff I have is very colorful. Every single thing. There's nothing I have with muted, gloomier tones, which can be cool. I really love to saturate everything.
That's the word that I would have used, saturated, because that's the one thing that I think stands out for me too, is that it is really bright and colorful.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And The Purge, I'm such a fan of that franchise. So I thought it was really neat that I got asked to do the episode of Purge Night.
Yeah.
Because that season, went on and on for episodes of, an entire year until the next Purge.
Yeah.
And I come in on Purge Night.
All right, someone else has to do all that other stuff, and then you get to pay it off.
I had way too much fun. I was like, okay, roll up my sleeves. Let's kill some actors. Like, let's do our thing. So no, I think you are too, but practical effects, I think, is definitely the way to go. So when, you go full Evil Dead and like you feel everything so tactile and like you can see and almost feel every gooiness, texture of all the gore, people know it's a Gigi project. Like, I love people going when they see all my stuff. Because it's also unexpected. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan.
That's bingo hell, like that, whatever you did with that green slime, but
yes.
And is again, as saturated slime and colorful, and just the way it was drooping on the briefcases, that was all well and good. But I'll tell you right now, it was the sound that you had with that.
Thank you.
It made it like that squishy, and then that crunch, like, oh.
I love that. I'm so You cool, man. I like that you saw that. My mom was so grossed out with Bingo Hell. She's trying so hard to watch all my movies, and she's always like, "I'm so proud of you," but I can tell she's suffering. One day, she really liked Culture Shock though, because that one was not so gory, not so scary. So definitely Culture Shock was my mom's favorite. Everything else, she's like,
I think that's the one I haven't seen yet.
Oh, I can't wait for you to see it. That's the
actually
one that
can't
really
wait.
put me out there. And I got The Purge thanks to that one. And Culture Shock won Best Primetime Movie as well for the Imagen Awards, which is like the Latino Golden Globes in LA. So it was
Nice.
really, really cool to just kind of show a different side of me. And
That was the Blumhouse film, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So that was the Hulu original too. So now I feel that it's really important for filmmakers too to not be afraid to challenge themselves with different genres. I think that's such a great thing because it only tests your skills to try new things, to try new ways, to try, so to me it's been great to kind of change around. And just recently, the biggest feature I've done was a biopic that I just shot this year in Colombia. So that's not horror at all. It's very character based. The movie's called Jenny, based on a Mexican American singer, Jenny Rivera. I'm excited because it's kind of like the movie Selena with J-Lo that a lot of people didn't know who Selena was until that movie came out. Like only Latins did. So this Jenny Rivera, I hope it does the same impact. But it was a very different experience. But I did miss my buckets of blood. Like I was like, oh man, I gotta change the script. Someone gotta die. Like I was like
just jonesing a little bit at the end. Was like, did nobody die in this family?
Yeah, so like that was rough. So, but what's cool though is that thanks to that experience, I went so hard with God of Death, and I'm excited for whatever comes next. It's kind of nice to find that mojo inside you, that eagerness to want to now go full you, but it takes trying out things every time. So, I quite love changing after directing, coming back to Vancouver and doing voiceover on children's shows or acting in another Crest commercial. Like I'm like, like you kind of find your balance again every time.
Have you got your next project lined up already?
We kind of do. Yeah. So over here, Luchagore Productions, which is our company here in Vancouver, we have potential to shoot first quarter of 2024 back in Mexico. But this time we're going full horror. Yeah, baby.
Feature?
So yes, sir. Oh, so I think there's potential right now for that. Finally, that Luchagore feature everybody's been wanting.
Nice.
I'm pumped because that's gonna be super us representing Vancouver, and I can't wait. So I hope it goes through because that's exactly what we're working on right now.
I hope that goes through.
Yay!
I'm very excited for a Luchagore feature that you can do what you do.
Thank you. Perfect. I will invite you to the screening just to see what you think.
I will absolutely be there.
You're the best.
And you're the best. And I can't wait to meet the best in person, but that will have to be later. And in order for that to happen, I have to let you go. So I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your day to do this. And we look forward to seeing you here at the festival and seeing more of your work in the future. Thank you so much, Gigi.
Oh, Darren, thank you so much. I'm super excited, especially for this podcast. See who else you guys get. I'll definitely be listening. And that was a lot of fun. So thank you so much. I hope to be back.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for checking it out. This was episode number 1 of Passing Through. On behalf of Gigi, I am Darren Blakeborough, and we will see you next time. Thanks.
I am officially number 1.
Yeah, numero uno. Or is that even Italian? I don't know.
Oh, no. Yeah, you said it. You said it.
Okay.